She saw me at her work party after 3 years apart, and she fell apart in front of everyone. They brought out a cake with gold lettering and sparklers. Everyone was clapping. Her boss gave a speech about leadership and resilience. Someone popped a bottle of champagne, and she was just standing there, glowing under the chandelier like nothing had ever happened, until she saw me. The glass slipped from her hand first. It hit the marble floor in slow motion, like a warning shot before the storm. Everyone's head turned to see what happened, but I already knew. She'd recognized me. She hadn't seen me in 3 years, but I hadn't changed that much. My hair was shorter, and I'd lost some weight, stress weight as I used to call it, but I still had the same shoulders, the same laugh, the same exact scar on my chin from where she once dropped her phone on my face in bed, and we'd laughed for 10 straight minutes. She didn't cry right away. That came about 30 seconds later, when I smiled. I didn't mean to smile, it just happened, and that broke her. She started sobbing like she'd just seen a ghost, clutching her stomach, mascara already running down her cheek. People rushed to her side. Her coworkers were asking if she was okay. A few whispered it might be food poisoning. Someone blamed the champagne, but I was the only one in the room who knew the truth, because I was the secret she buried, the mistake she thought would never resurface, the man she destroyed, disappeared from, and replaced, and I had just walked back into her life like a memory with legs. Let me rewind. I didn't come to ruin her night. I swear I didn't even know she worked there. The only reason I was at that party in the first place was because of an accounting error. Yeah, you read that right. An accounting error. 3 weeks before the party, I got an email from a corporate recruiter. They said my resume had landed in the wrong pile, and they wanted to fix that immediately. Within days, I was flown out for meetings, then interviews, then a final negotiation that ended with me accepting a new position, completely blind to the fact that this company was hers. Not her company. She didn't own it, but she was their golden girl. The one on the brochures, the face on the team leadership page, the woman they said had turned their brand around after it hit rock bottom. Funny, she hit rock bottom after using me to break her fall. That company party was the celebration of her promotion. Mine too, technically, but I wasn't there to be celebrated. I was there to remember who I was before her, to remember what it felt like to lose everything and still come out on the other side, and to watch her world silently fall apart with just one look. The same way mine once did with just one email. People think heartbreak looks cinematic, screaming in the rain, burning photographs, maybe a bottle of whiskey and some sad music. For me, it looked like a gallon-sized freezer bag with a wedding ring inside, tucked in the back of my freezer behind a half-eaten lasagna. I didn't even cry the day she left. I just stood there in our apartment listening to the hum of the refrigerator and the silence of a home that used to echo with her Spotify playlist and 2 a.m. giggles. I remember taking off the ring, walking to the kitchen, and dropping it into that plastic bag like I was saving leftovers. Then, I went back to the couch and sat there for hours, staring at the dent in the pillow where she used to rest her head. You know the worst part? I never got a proper ending. No closure, no fight, no screaming match where I could say all the things I'd rehearsed in my head. Just a sticky note on the bathroom mirror that said, "I'm sorry. I can't do this. You deserve better." Deserve better. I'd just spent 2 years paying our rent while she found herself. I cooked, I cleaned, I supported her when she quit her marketing job to explore her purpose. And all I got in return was a 7-word breakup note and a toothbrush that wasn't even mine. The day after she left, I found her Instagram story. She was at a rooftop bar with someone. I couldn't see his face, but his hand was on her thigh. She posted a quote with it. "Sometimes you have to break free to become who you were meant to be." I wanted to scream, but I didn't. I just turned off my phone and went back to the fridge. A week later, I found a letter in our mailbox. It was addressed to her, but it had my name as the CO. It was from a debt collection agency. Apparently, she'd maxed out our joint credit card before she left. Over $9,300, flights, hotels, Uber charges in cities she told me she wasn't even in. It took me a while to realize the math didn't add up. She'd been cheating on me for months, and not just emotionally. She was booking entire getaways, conferences that didn't exist, business retreats that were just excuses to be with him, whoever he was. I didn't tell anyone, not even my sister. I couldn't. I was too ashamed. I just started waking up every morning with this pressure in my chest, like I was wearing a wet sweatshirt I couldn't take off. Eventually, I moved. Changed cities, changed jobs, left everything behind except for the freezer bag with the ring. I brought it with me, put it in the new freezer, never opened it, never even looked at it, but I couldn't throw it away either. That bag held something heavier than gold. Regret. 3 years went by. And then, completely by accident, I accepted a job at the same company where she had risen through the ranks. Of all the startups in all the cities, I landed in hers. I didn't know it until the day of the party, until I saw the giant screen in the lobby that read, "Celebrating our VP of Brand Strategy, Eleanor Hart." Yep, she'd changed her name. New title, new identity, new everything. But I recognized her the moment I saw her reflection in the elevator mirror, and I knew right then. She had no idea I was about to walk back into her world. The Monday after the party, everything felt off. My key card didn't work on the first swipe. The elevator got stuck on the 12th floor for almost 5 minutes, and the barista downstairs gave me oat milk, even though I'd clearly asked for almond. Tiny glitches in the matrix, but they were adding up. I remember thinking, the universe knows something is coming. When I got to my desk, there was a glossy welcome packet waiting for me, stapled at the top with a tiny branded paperclip. Welcome to Lower and Ball, where ideas become identity. I hate corporate poetry. The whole thing smelled like lavender and desperation. I tossed it in my drawer and powered up my laptop. You'd think I'd be more shaken up after watching her crumble in front of 100 people. But honestly, I felt weirdly calm. Maybe it was the way she looked at me, like she'd seen a ghost who still remembered her sins. Or maybe it was the fact that, for the first time in years, I had nothing left to lose. Ever feel so numb that even revenge seems like too much effort? That's where I was. But fate, or incompetence, had other plans. My first assignment as senior content strategist was to review and archive old digital assets from previous brand campaigns. Basically, digging through years of forgotten files, deciding what was worth keeping and what could be tossed. I was a glorified digital janitor. Perfect. So I started digging. The system was a mess. Folders inside of folders, no naming conventions, video files with titles like Final V3 Final.move. After 2 hours, I was drowning in fonts, pitch decks, and expired Dropbox links. But then, tucked inside a 2019 folder labeled Private Internal Do Not Archive, I found a file named EH Voice Notes 2 and M4A. I knew those initials. I used to doodle them on our grocery lists. Eleanor Hart. She thought her full name sounded like royalty. I used to agree. I clicked play. It started with soft static, like she was sitting too close to the mic. Then, her voice, shaky, frustrated, and a world away from the polished VP the company now paraded around in brochures. February 14th, he found the receipt. I think he suspects. I tried to play it cool, but I know I messed up. I'm not built for lying. God, I never wanted this to go this far. Jaden says it's fine, that he'll handle it, but I don't know. I miss the days when Clarkson didn't look at me like I was someone else. I froze, not because of what she said, but how she said my name. Like it still hurt to say, like it still meant something. I had to listen to it 3 times just to make sure I wasn't imagining it. The date lined up, exactly 1 week before she left me. She was already gone back then, just not physically. There were more files, 11 of them, all voice notes she must have recorded to keep herself from falling apart. Maybe she never meant for anyone to hear them. Maybe she thought she'd deleted them. I spent the whole afternoon listening, one by one. The story they told was complicated. She hadn't just cheated. She'd spiraled, and fast. Guilt, fear, a sort of panic about her identity, her career, feeling trapped. Her words, not mine. But this is what broke me. He's the kindest person I've ever known, and I keep hurting them just by staying. That line should have felt like an apology. It didn't. It felt like a warning, like she saw the pain coming and didn't stop it anyway. By the time I looked up, it was after 7. The office was almost empty, but 1 floor up, the lights in the executive wing were still on. I copied the files to my personal drive, not for revenge, Not yet. But because I knew something I didn't know before. She wasn't as put together as she pretended to be, and she wasn't done breaking things, even if she didn't realize it yet. The next morning, I requested access to the internal strategy archive. I said I was doing continuity checks. They approved it without batting an eye. If Eleanor had more secrets buried in this place, I was going to find them. By the end of my second week, I'd memorized the security code to the 19th floor file room, the names of 3 janitors, and the number of seconds it took for the hallway motion lights to turn off. 22. I'd also learned that if you search for anything related to Jaden R. Lloyd in the lower and ball system, you get exactly 0 hits. No employee ID, no exit paperwork, no project records. It was like he never existed. But I remembered him all too well. He had a tattoo of coordinates on his collarbone. He used to say it was the place he realized who he really was. Eleanor told me that over dinner once, back before she stopped telling me things completely. I remember thinking it was the most pretentious thing I'd ever heard. Coordinates, please. Now, sitting in that freezing file room with a cup of vending machine coffee and a shared drive full of file names, I finally found something. A folder called Presentations Archived Eleanor Lloyd, buried 6 levels deep under Discontinued Concepts Q1. No tags, no metadata, no modification records, just a single 4 GB presentation file titled Mythos. When I opened it, my screen froze for a full 7 seconds. No joke, it felt like the universe was holding its breath. Inside the presentation were 47 slides, a brand proposal with stunning visuals, moody music samples, and voiceover notes from Eleanor. It was brilliant, arrogant, reckless, but brilliant. The kind of campaign that gets the attention of awards judges and makes your creative director sweat. I read every word, and halfway through, my pulse started to pick up. Slide 13. A brand is only real when it's willing to admit it has lied to you. Slide 20. Tell them what you were too afraid to say then. They'll forgive you for it now. Slide 35. You can't fake authenticity. You can only weaponize it. The whole thing read like a disguised confession, like someone trying to process guilt through marketing copy. The name Mythos wasn't just a product, it was a mirror. And by the time I got to the final slide, a stark black screen with white letters that read, "Control the story before it controls you," I knew without a doubt who had written it. It wasn't Jaden, it was her. The voiceover confirmed it. It was Eleanor before she became the polished version of herself. Her voice still cracked at the end of sentences. She wasn't selling a brand. She was bleeding onto a presentation, and that's when I realized. This campaign had never launched because it was never meant to. It was a mask, a private purge disguised as pitch language, and someone at the company had tried to bury it. But here's the twist. The presentation's metadata showed something odd. The original version was created by eHeart. Yes, but it had been heavily edited by a second user, JRL Lloyd, just days before being archived. Only the final version remained. All backups had been wiped. I should have stopped there. Any normal person would have, but obsession doesn't come with breaks. I created a clone of the file and ran it through a forensic restoration tool I'd once used at a previous freelance gig to recover corrupted media. After 2 hours and a system reboot, the software revealed something I wasn't prepared for. Redacted comments, hundreds of them, hidden behind invisible layers. This reads like you're writing to him. Are you sure you want this to be public? Why don't you just send it to him and be done with it? You said you weren't in love anymore. That's what you told me. He's going to see this and he'll know. Are you okay with that? These weren't corporate notes. They were conversations, arguments really, all embedded in a brand presentation meant to sell the truth. I leaned back in my chair, heart pounding. She hadn't just left me for Jaden. She had tried to turn our story into content. He tried to stop her. She archived it anyway. And now here I was, reading their digital fallout in a fluorescent-lit room while she sat 1 floor above, blissfully unaware that the lie she tried to delete had just landed back in my lap. This wasn't about cheating anymore. This was about ownership, about truth, and about who gets to tell it. And I wasn't done digging. There's a very specific kind of quiet that falls over an office at 6:42 p.m. on a Thursday. The kind where the air feels like it's holding its breath. Desks are abandoned, keyboards untouched, elevators silent, and only the cleaning crew hums through the halls like uniformed ghosts. It's the hour of unfinished thoughts and unsent emails. And that's when I did it. I printed the slide. Just one. Slide 35. You can't fake authenticity, you can only weaponize it. I trimmed the edges with scissors, folded it once, a clean, crisp crease, and slipped it into an unmarked envelope. No name, no return address, just that one sentence. In bold Helvetica font on matte white paper. Then I walked up to the executive floor and left it under her office door. My hands were shaking the whole time, not because I was afraid of getting caught. I wasn't. Security was half asleep, and if anyone asked, I could have just said I was delivering a file for creative. No, I was shaking because I wasn't sure which I wanted more, for her to ignore it or for her to know exactly where it came from. I didn't sleep that night, not really. My brain was spinning, picturing her opening the envelope, heart skipping a beat at the sight of the quote she once buried. Maybe she'd laugh, maybe she'd panic, maybe she'd do what she always did, pretend nothing was wrong and hope the truth would die quietly. But Friday morning told me everything I needed to know. Eleanor Hart didn't show up for work. Her executive assistant, a guy named Mitchell who wore three-piece suits even on Zoom calls, told the office she'd be working remotely for a few days. No reason given, no follow-up emails. She vanished like a puff of perfume, leaving behind her title, her desk, and a faint whisper of panic that no one could place but me. That afternoon, I saw it, an internal memo update. A substitute had been assigned to her department. Temporary point of contact while VP Hart is on personal leave. It wasn't just a sick day. She had cracked. That should have been enough. I should have let it go, closed the file, deleted the audio notes, and fed the printed slide into a shredder. But I didn't because something had shifted inside me, and I didn't know how to stop it. I wasn't just discovering her secrets anymore. I was curating them, seeing how a single thread could unravel a carefully stitched together life. But what scared me the most was this. It didn't feel like revenge. It felt like balance. I spent the weekend alone in my apartment, lights off, blinds drawn, listening to her old voice notes again. Not because I missed her, but because I needed to understand how someone could lie so beautifully and so completely. How do you say things like, "He's the only person who's ever really seen me," and still vanish without a goodbye? And then something happened I hadn't planned for. Sunday, 11:24 p.m. I got an email from a blocked address. Subject, "Don't. Body. I know it was you. Please don't do this. Please. No signature. Nothing else." I stared at it for a full minute. My chest tightened, not from fear, but from something worse. Recognition, that pleading tone, that wasn't VP Eleanor. That was the woman who once whispered poems to me at 2 a.m. and cried during laundry detergent commercials. That was her. For the first time since the party, I didn't feel angry. I felt cornered. She knew, and I had her attention. The power had shifted, but not in the way I thought it would. I expected her to retaliate, maybe even threaten me. Instead, she asked me to stop. No denial, no gaslighting. Just a single word in the subject line and a "please," so I did something I swore I wouldn't. I replied. Subject, why? Body, you don't get to disappear and come back like nothing happened. You don't get to cry at a party and expect that to erase everything. Why did you do it? I didn't send it right away. I rewrote it 4 times, softened it, sharpened it, stripped it back down. Finally, I hit send. 2 minutes later, it bounced back. The account had already been deleted, just like she had. Monday morning was a storm, not outside, inside me. My thoughts were like broken glass, sharp and everywhere. I couldn't focus on my inbox. I didn't hear people say my name in the hallway. And I certainly didn't taste the coffee I accidentally brewed with salted caramel oat milk because someone restocked the fridge wrong again. I was floating in that weird, lightheaded way when your body shows up for work, but your soul is still stuck on last night's email that never got delivered. Her inbox was gone, wiped. Even the company's internal messaging tool showed her as unknown user. That's not how leave of absence works. That's how you make digital ghosts. I sat in front of my two monitors, staring at spreadsheets I didn't open, my fingers hovering over the keyboard like they'd forgotten how to move. I knew I was spiraling again. I knew because I was doing that thing I always did in my worst moments. I started narrating my own life in my head like I was in a documentary no one would ever see. Here sits Clarkson Hale, age 32, emotionally unequipped to deal with anything resembling closure, romance, or shared Google Drives. But I couldn't let it end like this. Not with a bounced message in a phantom inbox. So I did the one thing I promised myself I wouldn't do again. I went back into the system. The archive portal was more heavily guarded now. Someone had password-protected entire folders that were open just days before. I should have taken that as a warning. Instead, I dug deeper, tracking timestamps, cross-referencing user activity logs, and trying to find patterns in what had been deleted or moved. That's when I found it, buried under a folder marked Client DV Legacy Internal Use Only. Inside, another folder labeled Albatross, a term that hadn't appeared anywhere else in the system. Inside that was a single document, a PDF, no images, no formatting, just a title at the top of the first page. Compliance Irregularity, Phase 2B, Internal Report, Unsubmitted Draft. The author, E. Hart. The date, 10 days before she left me. There was no introduction, no summary, just bullet points. But my stomach turned with every line. Inconsistent contractor invoicing on J. Lloyd's brand innovation packs. 4 travel invoices tied to non-existent events in Toronto, Austin, Lisbon, and Montreal. Falsified expense report totals inflated between 11% and 18% over 3 consecutive quarters. Payments authorized by temporary staff, some of whom were hired and terminated within the same 48-hour window. And then, at the bottom, in bold, I am concerned this could result in serious legal exposure. Jaden insists they are misunderstandings, but if this goes further, I will not be able to remain silent. I scrolled down. Blank pages, just silence after that bombshell. She knew. She had known before she left me. Before the note on the mirror, before she cried at the company party, she was sitting on a time bomb. And instead of reporting it, she walked away. From me, from the company, from everything. Suddenly, this wasn't about heartbreak anymore. It wasn't even about betrayal. It was about a cover-up. And now I was the only one in the building who knew it existed. I downloaded the file to a secure USB drive I kept in my backpack, a relic from my freelance days when clients would try to accidentally disappear after final drafts were delivered. Then I closed the laptop, looked at my own reflection in the black screen, and whispered, "What the hell are you doing, man?" I didn't know. I really didn't. But I knew this. If I was right, and Jaden, the guy she left me for, had defrauded the company, then she didn't just disappear out of guilt. She was running from something or someone. And now that I had opened that file, I wasn't sure who was watching me or how far they would go to make sure this stayed buried. I didn't sleep that night again. I just lay in bed staring at the ceiling, heart pounding, running through every possible consequence of what I had just uncovered. It wasn't just about Eleanor anymore, not even Jaden. This was about fraud, cover-ups, and a document that, if it fell into the wrong hands, could shatter the careers of people far above my pay grade. And I had it. I got to the office early the next morning, earlier than usual. The hallways were still dark, the vending machine lights the only thing humming. My mind was racing. I couldn't focus on anything else. I kept thinking about that folder name, Albatross, and how fitting it was. In literature, an albatross is a burden, a curse you can't shake once it's around your neck. And now that file was mine. I opened my desk drawer to grab my notebook, and that's when I saw it. Folded once, wedged just under the lip of the drawer, where no one should have been able to reach unless they'd been inside my locked office. A small yellow sticky note. No handwriting, just typed. You're asking questions. Stop. Some things are buried for a reason. No signature, no context. But I knew exactly what it was about. My first instinct was to stand up and walk out of the building. Just leave. Quit. Disappear from everyone's lives. Move again. I'd done it before. It wouldn't be hard to vanish. But then I remembered the voice notes. The presentation, the fact that Eleanor had been on the verge of doing the right thing and then didn't. What if I was the only person left who could? The truth is, I didn't feel brave. I felt stupid. The kind of stomach-churning stupid where you know you've gone too far, but it's too late to turn back. I read the note again. The font used was Arial Narrow, the kind you use when printing out server logs. That meant whoever left it wasn't just a passive observer. They had access, insider access. Someone on the inside knew what I'd done. I spent the next 2 hours scanning every inch of my office, checking my devices for anything strange, looking over my shoulder like I was in a movie. I even unplugged the office webcam and put a piece of tape over the mic. Paranoid? Absolutely. But paranoia is just pattern recognition kicked up to an 11. I was still shaking when I logged on and started digging through more internal files. That's when I noticed something new. A folder had been wiped from the archive. The Mythos presentation was gone, erased from the system like it never existed, which would have been alarming enough, except I never touched the original. I only cloned it. Someone else had access. That narrowed it down to maybe 5 people, all high level, but I didn't trust anyone, so I did what I always do when I panic. I went for a walk I pretended was for coffee. In the lobby, I ran into Abby, one of the mid-level managers in research, someone I'd only spoken to twice during onboarding. She stopped me mid-stride. "Hey, you okay?" I smiled too quickly. "Yeah, just a lot of meetings." She paused. I saw something weird on the log activity this week. Files are being pulled from projects that were archived back in 2019. Someone's fishing in old water." I froze. "You track file activity?" She raised an eyebrow like she wasn't sure she should admit to something. "I track whatever the system flags. You might want to be careful. This place isn't as clean as it looks." And then, and I swear I'm not making this up, she walked away like it was a casual conversation, like we'd just been talking about lunch spots or printer queues. But my mind was spinning. She knew. Maybe not everything, but enough. Enough to know I wasn't alone anymore. That maybe this wasn't just my burden. Maybe other people had seen cracks forming and chose to stay quiet, just like Eleanor. That afternoon, I plugged in my personal drive and copied the entire Albatross folder to a private encrypted cloud account. If they wiped the internal system, I'd still have it. If they came after me legally, I could make a choice, leak it or walk away. But I also knew one thing. If someone was leaving me a note, they were close enough to do something worse. I couldn't trust Eleanor. I couldn't trust the company, and now I couldn't even trust the silence. I didn't plan on seeing her again. After everything, the notes, the wiped files, the threats, the voice recordings, I thought the story was over. I'd braced myself for it to end in a legal notice or another mysterious email. I did not expect a phone call from a blocked number on a quiet Sunday morning while I was folding laundry and wondering if I should buy new socks or finally throw out the ones with holes. But it was her. She didn't say her name. She didn't have to. "Clarkson," she said, her voice softer than I remembered. Slower, too. "I know you have questions. I'm ready to answer them, but not on the phone." I don't know why I agreed. Maybe I needed closure. Maybe I wanted to look her in the eyes and finally see something other than the person who left me behind like a half-finished thought. Maybe I wanted her to hurt the way I had. But that's not what happened. We met at a small cafe on the edge of town, the kind of place with handwritten menus and chipped mugs that somehow made the coffee taste better. She looked different, tired but not fragile. She wasn't wearing any makeup, just a gray sweater and a look I hadn't seen in years. Truth. Before I could say anything, she put a manila envelope on the table and pushed it toward me. "I never filed the report," she said, "because I was scared. Not of Jaden, of myself, of what people would think if they knew I stayed quiet." I opened the envelope. Inside was a hard copy of the Albatross report, plus a signed statement, her confession, with no legal spin, no corporate language, just the truth. "I was going to send it," she said, staring out the window. "I had it all ready. And then I panicked. I thought if I just burned everything down, maybe I could start over. But I couldn't. It followed me. Every promotion, every interview, every quiet moment. And when I saw you at that party, it all came crashing down again because you were the only person who ever saw who I was. And you still looked at me like I mattered." I wanted to be angry. I wanted to throw the folder back at her and storm out, but I didn't because I could see it now. The guilt, the regret, the fact that she had been punishing herself for longer than I ever could have. And something in me broke. I didn't forgive her, not right then. That would have been too easy, too neat. But I did say something I never thought I would. "I believe you." She blinked. "You do?" I nodded. "I believe you were scared, and I believe you still are. But if you want to do the right thing now, I'll help you." We filed the report together that week, to the board, to legal, to HR, quietly, unofficially, but completely. Jaden was already gone. Some private settlement that no one talked about, but the company launched an internal audit anyway. Quiet firings followed, policy changes, accountability. It didn't make headlines. It didn't become a viral expose, but it mattered. Eleanor resigned a month later. No fanfare, no press release. She said she wanted to live slower, maybe write, maybe teach. She sent me a letter afterward, not an email, a real one, handwritten in cursive, the kind no one writes anymore. It ended with this line: "You once told me the truth doesn't erase what we've done, but it can change what we do next. I finally understand what that means." I ended up going freelance again, this time on my own terms. Small clients, good people. I moved into a place with a window that gets the morning sun and a kitchen that can actually fit 2 people cooking at once. And one day, I opened my freezer. The ring was still there, inside the same plastic bag, next to a pint of mango sorbet. I didn't throw it out, but I did take it out. I held it for a moment, remembered all of it. The laughter, the loss, the incredible pain, and the quiet way healing sneaks up on you when you least expect it. Then I walked out to the lake and just let it go. I just let it go. And for the first time in years, I felt light.